Welcome to Kleiner Restoration. I'm Ed. I guess a little background is in order. I enjoy doing some restoration work. Primarily it's been on boats. I do have some other projects in mind. I'd like to share the videos. I hope they're enjoyable. I hope they're helpful. Initially, I think what I'll be doing is sharing some of the footage I've shot on some work I've done on the old Sunfish Sailboat. That's certainly what this first video is about. I guess the other thing you'll notice is I'm not a photographer and I'm not a professional video editor, so these are going to be a little clunky. I have a lot of footage that I've shot and I'm now trying to put it together, which I found probably a little more difficult than I expected. I'm also not very comfortable in front of a camera, but I feel like that's kind of required. Also, a lot of the video I've shot has been in various time periods, so these videos will not follow always chronologically. I'm going to grab some footage from before, add it in, something from later, so it doesn't necessarily flow in the same timestamp start to finish. So if you have any ideas of how I can make a video better, please let me know. Put it in the comments down below. As I mentioned, the videos to begin with will be on the Sunfish Sailboat. I've actually now have picked up several of them and have done, a little bit of work on them. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but again, I'm shooting this video to see if it'll be helpful to others. So at this point, I say, let's get started. So we were able to pick up this sunfish for $40. We've named her Rosie, and when we showed up, as we turned her over, we could tell she was full of water, incredibly heavy. We could barely move her. But luckily, she had all the parts. As you can see here, there's the mast, I see the dagger board, the spars. The sail was trashed, but everything was pretty much there, and she was definitely full of water. So while the water drained, we were happy to play in the water, or at least our dogs were. It was actually a pretty cold day, so my wife and I stayed out of the water, but the dogs certainly had a good time. Unfortunately, we weren't able to bring the trailer very close to the boat, so we did have a bit of hauling to do. And since she was waterlogged, even with the water drain, she was pretty heavy, and you can also see she's pretty oxidized. To bring the Gelcoat back, I used a Dual Action Orbital Buffer. I started off by wet sanding. I used 800 grit, 1500 grit to 1200 grit, and then moved to the compounds and polishes that you see here. Basically, I have a bucket down below where I have some water with a little bit of soap in it, and I will start my sanding pattern. Basically, you're working back and forth, up and down. As you can see, I'm not really confident here. This is the first time I have done this process. So I've never wet sanded before. I had seen some photos of somebody who had done it in the Facebook Sunfish Repair group. I was impressed by it. I sent him a couple messages. He told me what he had done, and I decided to follow suit. I figured if I could bring back some of the color, that would be great. I really didn't have that much to lose. I didn't expect it to take too much time, and it didn't. I broke it down in sections, and you'll see all of this in the videos. But basically, I'm trying to work left to right, up and down, and cover everything. I'm not very consistent at this point, but, it was a learning effort. I'm adding a little bit more water. I will go back over it again. I figured it was about 3 minutes per section. What I did is divided the boat into smaller sections that I could work at a time. As I go along, I get a little bit more consistent in my patterns. But I will say that
the results were uniform. So I wouldn't sweat it too much. If you're doing this for the first time, you'll get better as you go. One thing you might notice here is it's throwing off a bit of that water, and in that water you'll get a lot of the color from the gel coat. So it is kind of a messy job. In this particular case, obviously it's splattering kind of a reddish, whitish, pink spray. You can see it a little bit on the deck closest to us. It's also soaking my pants, and it definitely is discoloring everything, except it's not permanent. And you can see the pattern's getting a little bit better from the very first one. And it'll get, as I mentioned, it gets better as it goes along. Now I'm just kind of drying it off again. Back to that spray that comes off the boat. There's a lot of color in it. You can see it a little bit on the rag before I turned it over there, a lot of red. So just cleaning that off. Just trying to clean as I go. Now I'll point out, the deck is still wet. It is not getting that much shine at this point. That's just still water on the deck. As it dries off, it'll get back to kind of an oxidized color. Again, this is step one. And you can see I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. I'm starting on the other section. Again, splash some water on it, get it nice and wet. Now I'm removing the screws one at a time just to make sure that I get a good polish around them. I have done some other boats as well after this. I would say I usually just now leave in one screw and work around it. So now as the deck is drying out, you can see a lot of what you saw moments ago was just water on it. Also, good warning to people who are looking at the ads on Craigslist or Facebook. One of the things I usually look for is to see if there's water on the ground. Usually people spray those boats down pretty good to make them look like they're shiny. And you might not think you'll need to do this, and then you're surprised. However, you can see that there is definitely a difference from where I was or what I had to begin with and where I am now. So it's not exactly what I want, but it's getting there. So I've completed the wet sanding through all the grits, and you can see I'm starting to get a good shine. Nonetheless, I'm going to continue on with the compounds and polishes and wax. So I'm starting with the most aggressive, which I believe is the Meguiar's Oxidation number 49. And each of these also have a specific pad that you use, a coarse pad, and then you kind of work up to finer pads as you go along. All of these were purchased from Harbor Freight. I'm moving up to the next compound. I believe it was the swirl remover. Learning that it's easier to put the pad onto the boat and then line up the tool to the pad than vice versa. Finding that the deck is a terrible place to put tools. And again, I'm still applying the polishes and compounds to the pad. I think later I figured out it's just as easy to squirt it onto the boat and then rub the pad around on that. Again, working the same sort of pattern of kind of back and forth, left and right. So we're definitely getting to the moment of truth. I've gone through my compounds, I've done the back half, and voila, you can definitely see what we accomplished. So now it's time to move on to the front. And I guess a word of warning. Those exposed screws are dangerous, so watch your thumbs.
So looking back on it, here's the process. One, the wet sanding. I start with the 800 grit up to a 1500 grit and then finish with a 2000 grit. Each one of those is done separately. Time-wise, I'm saying it's about 30 minutes probably per grit across the entire deck of the boat. So for this wet sanding, you're looking at roughly an hour and a half. And then I work through the 4 compounds, polishes, and wax. I know some people don't think you should wax the deck of the Sunfish because it'll make it too slippery. It does. It does make it slippery. In my experience, it hasn't been too slippery. The reason I do it is I want that level of protection on the Gelcoat. Totally up to you. Do it, don't do it. I like the shine, so I do it. So here's my material list for the Gelcoat restoration. So first off, you're going to need a dual action orbital sander buffer. I used one from Harbor Freight. It's their Bauer 5.7 amp 6-inch short throw. It runs about $69. I think that's just the that's their list price. Certainly, anybody who's familiar with Harbor Freight, there's often coupons
for 20% off, 25% off. And then also, I just saw this coupon last week, and you can see $39 for the tool. So you can definitely save some money there. For the wet sanding, I picked up all the 6-inch sanding discs off Amazon. Then when you do the compounds and the polishes, you do need to pick up pads to do that. And so you can see I've got 4 of them listed. The oxidation remover, I've highlighted this. It's no longer offered at Harbor Freight. This is number 49. A quick look online, I can see that it's available from Ace Hardware. It's available probably on Amazon. And actually, the price seemed a little bit lower than what Harbor Freight was selling it for. So all in, we're looking at about $212. Anything with Harbor Freight, you might be able to have some coupons that bring the price down. Amazon, obviously, you're kind of going to hit that price. And then again, the big one would be getting the price down for the tool. The other note is once you own that tool, you can use it for other projects. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I hope you found it enjoyable. I hope you found it helpful. At this point, if you have any advice, please put it down in the comments. And nobody at this point should like or subscribe. Nobody should be liking and subscribing my first video. If I get to 5, if I continue this, you know what? Then you can like and subscribe. But until then, nobody should like or subscribe. Thanks.